Hi everyone, it's Benetta here from Your Anxious Teen, and today we're talking about the drama triangle or even the victim triangle. So it can be called both. And what I want to talk about is my own experience with this triangle of characters. We often don't know that we're actually falling into this category of the victim or the rescuer or the persecutor. So I wanted to talk about it because it's really important that we see how this acts out in our own lives. With our teens, they quite often will turn things around and say to us, "Oh, you're telling me, you're judging me, you're not allowing me to do things," and it's probably true because once we start this drama triangle, we don't realize how destructive it's becoming to not only our relationship with our teen, but also not allowing them to grow and make their own decisions. Why I'm really talking about this today is because I suppose being a nurse or being someone who's used to being in control and knowing how to, I suppose, help people or fix things or find some solutions, it came easily to me to try and find solutions for my child when they had this anxiety, depression, felt like they couldn't do anything for themselves. So let's talk a little bit more about the three characters in this triangle. First of all, the victim. We can actually become the victim also because we start saying things like, "Oh, poor me," or we feel helpless, we feel powerless to do anything, we feel stuck, or we feel as though there's no appreciation as to what we're doing. So as a parent, we also can become the victim as well as our children. So when our children have anxiety or when they have depression or when they feel stuck, they start to feel powerless and helpless and as though they can't do anything for themselves. They also might start saying things like, "It's our fault. It's our fault that they feel this way. It's our fault that they have nothing to look forward to." This is something that really hurts us as parents, okay? We start to really feel as though we are also powerless and helpless. So who are the other two people in this triangle? So the first one is the rescuer. As a parent, I know that I couldn't stand the thought of my child being hurt or feeling helpless and powerless, or that there was never going to be a resolve to how they felt. And I felt it was my duty as a parent to be able to find a resolution, to find a solution, to help them in all the ways I knew as a parent, which was to take over, to do everything for them. But it really didn't help. So the rescuer is someone who keeps, I suppose, making excuses for them, tries to find a solution for them, and sometimes pushes them. So this is where we get the third person who comes in, which is, the persecutor. And no one wants to be that person, right? So it's not your fault. It's not something you want. It is something that you do in desperation. Being the persecutor, you tend to say things like threats. Something like, "You have to, you need to, you should do," because we're trying to push them into finding a solution for themselves. What I found, though, is that that doesn't help, is that we start to get to those places because we're feeling resentment. We're feeling resentment and guilt. And last week, I actually talked about the mum guilt, and that comes into this so easily, is that we feel guilty that we haven't done enough, that we keep trying, and that the person that we're trying to help doesn't want to help themselves. And that's where the victim starts to come in as well, is that they just don't have the power or don't feel like they have the power to set the ball in motion. So we take over, start controlling, and then become resentful about them not appreciating what we're doing. We start trying to enforce rules, start to be very oppressive, like you can't go out without me being there, or you can't do that without my say-so. We start taking things away from them. So we start taking away all the communication that they have. So take away their phones, take away their computers, take away all the things that give them a small amount of pleasure. This really doesn't help. To be quite honest, it really doesn't help, because all we're doing is making them feel worse. However, we're trying our very best to do whatever we can. Remember, we can only do whatever we feel is the right thing. We may be going back to what our parents did to us. We may be listening to other people. We may be just grabbing at straws, anything that can actually help us to feel better about the situation. And that's where we have to change our mentality, right? Is that we can't do this for them. We can only help by doing something different. Because if whatever we're doing is working, like taking their phone away and I suppose making them do chores or whatever it is that we're doing, if that's working for you, that's great, right? I'm just talking to those people who seem to have tried everything and it's not working. So for me, it wasn't working. And all I can say to you is that by doing something else, it has helped, right? It's not 100%. It's not absolutely done and dusted, because I don't think it really ever is. I think when you've got a teen who is anxious and depressed, that's part of their personality too, right? If we have a child who is sort of very, very sensitive and who takes things to heart and who feels empathetic towards others, we are going to find that this, I suppose, anxiety will turn up again. And that thing of feeling a little bit out of sorts or don't quite know how to deal with things that come up in life. However, if we teach them these things like resilience, like starting to tap into their own feelings, being able to then sort out those feelings, like, are they real, or is it something that is, made up by us to protect us or to procrastinate and take our mind off the real problems that are going on, or to even punish themselves. But if they can understand it, if we can give them the tools to understand it, then we can start to turn things around. One of the biggest things I found was that if I took care of myself, if I calmed down, because once I started to argue or fight or get pulled into the drama, then I lost already. I was lost because they also lost the plot and there was no talking amongst us at all. We just lost the connection. So I'm going to say to you that today, if you'd like just a short download to listen to so that you can calm down a little bit, so that each time something comes up, you can go away, take the 5 or 10 minutes to just listen to my download, to allow yourself to calm down. It takes away that chaotic brain, the brain that's in overwhelm, the brain that I can't do this anymore, the brain that says, I'm shut of it, I'm sick of it, right? So if we can do that, then that's a part of this whole process. And I've got a little thing here saying one of the things I've noticed is there may be a tendency to point the finger, yes, that's right, at what the kids are doing. And it's a bad idea. We can find a better idea, right? So thank you for that, Adair, coming through and asking that question. So it is when we start to become resentful that we become the persecutor, right? We start judging, and we are only coming from our own self, what we would do now as adults, right? We have had many years to actually start learning these things in a better way. So if you really would like, some more details on this, just put in the comments notes, and I will send you the notes from today. Or if you'd like the Calm download, just put download or Calm, and we'll know what to send to you. But it will really help, just that small amount. So let's think about how we can change this, right? How those characters can actually be more resourceful. So the 3 things that I say to people when they're coming in to do my program is there has to be effort. So there has to be effort as well on the part of the teenager. And the way that we do that is we start to get them to be resourceful. The second thing is the compassion for each other, to know that as a parent, this is how this feels. And as a teen, this is how it feels, because we tend to forget how they're feeling and how their world can just fall apart with very small things because their brain hasn't expanded enough to really sort all this stuff out. Plus, there's hormones going on, and there's all sorts of things that we have forgotten as adults that go on with our kids, right? So let's think about the other thing, and that's to find some meeting point, right? To actually find a meeting point so that they're not giving in and we're not giving in. But there has to be somewhere that we can meet in the middle. And when we meet in the middle, then we start finding this, I suppose, ground where we can work together. And if we start thinking in the way of our teams and getting them to think about the way in our world, what we're doing, then things can get a lot better. So yes, I think that when we think about how to change it, because this is what we want to do, right? This codependency type drama triangle is just making things toxic, where we can't talk to each other, where we can't find that common ground. So let's see how we can turn this around. So number 1 is to find someone who is a challenger. And I see myself in this role. As a therapist, I think that we need to find some learning, right? So it calls in learning and growth. When I do my program with my teams, we go through a process of being able to find out how they grow within themselves. The learning that I help them find is to learn about themselves, to learn about the conditions, anxiety, depression, and to know why they're there. And then to help them see that they're only there really to help them to cope. Help them cope right now. So they are a coping mechanism for our mind and our body. Then we start to think about how we can evoke some action. So how we can evoke some action is by just gently pushing them outside of their comfort zone. Their comfort zone will be usually within their bedroom, within their small peer group, or even completely alone. That is just, as I say, a coping mechanism, and it's a comfort zone. However, nothing really moves and shifts in the comfort zone. What we need to do is gently to push them just a little bit outside of that comfort zone so that they know that they can do things. So it empowers them when they see that, you know what, maybe I can talk to that person who sits next to me. Maybe I can actually join a group and have some fun. Maybe there's something more than just sitting alone and dwelling on what I can't fix. Because when we look at anxiety, it's really them wanting to control situations that are out of their control. That what if this happens, what if that happens, what if that doesn't work out? And it tends to keep them inside the comfort zone. So if we go to what if you could just do this, and it could be a very small thing. It could be, what if you could get out of bed and eat something? What about if you could get out of bed, eat something, have a shower, and get dressed today? So it doesn't have to be anything absolutely major, but minor steps mean so much to them. Because if they find that they can do something, guess what? They might be able to do something else, and they might be able to do it again tomorrow, and they might be able to add something to it. So just pushing them outside of that comfort zone just a little. What about some constructive thoughts, some rethinking of what's going on? Because when we're in the victim zone, or when they're in the victim zone, we start thinking as though that's us. That has to be us, right? Nothing ever goes right. We can't ever do that. It's something that they start to think, and then they prove it right? We all do that sometimes when we start to think, well, I can't go for a walk today because it's raining. What's the rain got to do with it? So if we start thinking why we can't, then we won't. So let's think as a challenger about rethinking. It's that you can do it. And sometimes I will do what I'm asking them to do. Because say if I'm afraid of going out today, or I'm afraid of COVID, or I'm afraid of heights, I might say to them, okay, I'll go to the top of a tower and take a picture of myself. And so you can see that if I can do it, anybody can do it. So it's that thing of, you can do it, even if it's a small thing. You can do it, and the more they see that, the more they want to. So let's see about the second person. So the one that actually is usually the victim to start off with, and that's usually my client. The teens who come to me don't always want to at first, right? Their parent may have pushed them outside of their comfort zone and said, hey, you know what? Just go once. Just go once. Talk to Benetta. See if you want to go again. Because all it takes is that once. And when they see that I'm not judgmental, that I'm actually wanting to help them, and that I am going to just push them a little bit, and I tell them this right from the start, I might be pushing you a little bit. When you do your homework, I might say, this is what I want you to do, and you need to do it. So why is what I tell them to, why I want them to do it, why it's important. Because if they know the why and they know the how, then they're much more likely to do it, okay? So the second person, as I say, my client usually is the creator. We want these teens to create things for themselves eventually. So it may be that they do one small thing and then they start the ball rolling, okay? So the power to choose. I might only give them 2 choices. I might say, okay, I want you to do this or that. And that's a really good place to start, because quite often their decision making is really bad when they're in the victim mode. Hi, Trina. Oh, hi. Just saying hi. Hi. It's lovely that people will want to come and actually listen to what I'm going to say, because you know what? I just want people to be able to not get into the mess that I got into. And sometimes you're already in that mess, right? Where I was before. But I really believe that we can start somewhere with our teens. And as parents, to be able to give them the power to make choices. So as I'm saying right now, give them a choice, but usually you have 1 or 2 things, either this or that, because then the subconscious mind clicks in and says to that person, well, I've only got 1 of 2 choices. I want that to not be a judgmental thing though, where we're not pointing the finger, where we're just giving them a choice of, hey, what about if you have a shower today? And if they say yes, say, okay, do you want it now or within the hour? Because that's really giving their subconscious mind a message. Yeah, a personal experience, exactly. Somebody's saying about when it comes from a personal experience, it's much more powerful. I believe that too. And that is why I'm here, because my anxious teen was so dependent on me. And I just took that dependency. I suppose ran with it because that's the only thing I knew what to do. So let's think about the creator a bit more. Focus on a positive outcome. So we could say to them, you know what? When you shower, it's really nice, isn't it? Because when I shower, I find that it revitalizes me, that it makes me feel a bit better. Even if it's just, washing the body, at least it's something. What about if you eat something? Because your body needs some nutrition, it needs some energy to be able to carry on. So what about if you ate something? What do you really fancy? This or this? Because if you eat that, guess what? You'll probably feel better. Your body will feel more inclined to do things for you. It's just something that we could say to them that encourages them, right? So if you focus on that positive outcome rather than getting away from a negative. So, if you don't wash, you'll just get smelly and people will stay away from you, and then you will have no friends. That's a negative, right? So if we can just concentrate on a positive attitude, you feel better, you'll smell better, the world seems a little bit better once you've actually had a shower, whatever it is. So one other thing about the creator, that they have an I can attitude, right? You can. If we're saying you can, and then they do something, then they feel that they can. So they can do something for themselves. They can take a positive step. They can, I suppose, speak to you about something. If we're someone who sits down and listens, and quite often they do want to talk about something, but they don't because they think it's going to hurt us. They think that we don't want to know the truth. However, knowing the truth means that we can do something about it, even if it's about us, right? My son would sometimes say to me, can you just give up, Mum? Can you just leave me alone for a while? And I had to do that because it meant that he could actually rest and he could think things through a little bit. And sometimes I would just plant a little seed, like, you know what? Maybe you could do that. Maybe you could do this for me. like if it was something that would get him out of his room. And often it would be something to do with the computer, because I wasn't very computer savvy. Plus, being a little bit dumb sometimes actually made him feel as though he was much more intelligent, or that he could teach me something. And that was a really nice thing, that he could teach me something. So what about the other person, the coach? So the coach, in my estimation, would usually be you, the parent. So once he's had some instruction from me, once he knows that he can actually create his own world to some degree, then it's up to you being the coach. So what is the coach's role? The coach's role is actually to be a support and to assist them moving forward. So quite often I will say to my parents who bring the teens to me, I will say, okay, this is what I want you to do. So this is what I'm going to teach today, and this is what I want your role to be. Because if they start trying to take over my role, then we're back to square one. So I will tell them, this is what I want you to do. This is what I want you to say. This is what I want you to stick to. This is sometimes a little more difficult if we have divorced parents, or actually men who don't want to do what I'm asking. If that's the case, then we have to dismiss them and we have to just carry on with our role. I can send some other information to them, but it makes it sometimes a little bit more difficult because they have their own thoughts and ideas and ways of doing things, and we as women have something different. What I will say is that it's not impossible, it's just more difficult. The other thing is to facilitate clarity. This is really important because quite often as a parent, we will say something that our teen does not understand clearly. So we have to then ask them, so we sit down and say this and we say, what did you understand I said to you? And if they say blah, 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 yes, that's true. Or they might say, I heard you say this. Because remember that we're not all the same and we don't all hear the same thing. So just make sure that when you're saying something, that they understand what you're saying and that you are able to then be absolutely clear and precise about what it is that you want and how you want to be heard. Okay? All right. The other thing is, I want you to think about the words that you use. Words like imagine are very hypnotic. So imagine your life doing this. Imagine how good it will feel. Remember what it was like. Because if we take them back to a good memory, we can remember what it was like. Remember what it was like when we did this. Shall we try that again? Because it really sparks the imagination. What about how would it feel? Because every strategy that we have in life always ends in how it feels. So how would it feel to do this? How would it feel to do something positive? Remember, we need to put it into the positive. So remember, and also how would it feel? What about also if instead of asking them to tell us something, to ask about curiosity? I'm curious to know how that feels. I'm curious to know how that would be for you. Anyway, we have come to the end today, and I feel that I've only said so much. So if you'd like the notes, please write notes in the comments, and we will get those to you. Also, if you'd like the calming, wonderful sitting down and listening to something that will help you to create calm, why don't you write calm? and we'll send that to you too. And I will see you this time next week. Remember, this is all recorded, and if you'd like to listen to the recording, that's fine. Anyway, I'll see you next week, and let's hope that you can break that drama triangle sometime soon. Bye for now. Lovely to be here with you.